Liquidation does not magically make all company debts disappear. And if you don't understand this, you could lose everything. I get this question almost every day. Chris, can I just liquidate the company and walk away from all of the debts? And I understand why you guys are asking it. You're exhausted, you're losing sleep, you're being chased by creditors, you don't want to open letters because you're too scared to read them. And I also know a lot of you don't want to dodge responsibility, you just want the pressure to stop. But here's the danger: if you misunderstand liquidation, if you do it late, you do it emotionally, you take the wrong advice, you just rush into it, you can turn company debt into personal debt very quickly. And once that happens, liquidation hasn't protected you at all. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what liquidation really is, which debts will die with a company, which ones will follow you around personally. I'm going to talk about where sometimes HMRC might step in, and I'm going to talk to you about how you close a company safely, okay? So, what does liquidation really mean? Let's slow this right down. Liquidation is not an escape route. It is a legal process, okay? Its purpose is to stop a business trading that's become insolvent, gather the assets of the company and sell them, okay, realise some money, and then treat the creditors fairly. So when an insolvency practitioner sells assets or collects money in, they have a hierarchy of how they pay your creditors. The liquidator is going to review what the director did. So they're going to look at your conduct and what's caused the insolvency, and then they're going to close the company down properly, okay? So liquidation is for businesses that become insolvent, right? Insolvency means you can't pay your debts when they fall due. That's the cash flow test. Your liabilities are more than your assets. That's the balance sheet test. Or someone has taken legal action against your company. Stat, demand, CCJ are winding up. That's the legal action test, okay? Now, I want you to think of really a mindset shift here, right? You're not saying, I don't want to pay. What you're saying is, the company cannot pay. Now, this really matters, okay? Legally and practically. Because you, the director, you're not your limited company. And following on from that insolvency test that I talked about earlier, what I want you to ask the question is, like, realistically, in the cold light of day, is there any way my business is ever going to get on a firm financial footing again? And if the answer is no, got to pick the phone up. In fact, if anything I've said so far has sort of pricked your conscience, if you go to the description below and you click that top link, put your details in, one of my team will call you today, okay? We are #1 on Trustpilot. We'll give you a ton of free advice, no strings, no obligation, okay? Because if you do liquidation properly, okay, it draws a clear line under the company. If you do it badly, if you take bad advice, if you bury your head in the sand, it's going to open you up to being made personally liable. So it's serious stuff, right? What I want to talk to you about is what happens to debts in what I would class a proper liquidation. My grammar might not be great. I'm from the north of England. Please forgive me, right? Because this is where directors get confused. And there's a lot of nonsense out there. Most limited company debts do stay with the company, okay? So let's go through them. Suppliers, unless you've signed a PG. Trade creditors, again, unless you've signed a PG. Landlords, so rent, unless you've signed a PG, okay? I'm going to come on to that more later. Unsecured loans, that could be a bounce back loan. Could be the C-bills loan. HMRC, so VAT, PAYE, corporation tax. They are all company debts, right? Now, if the business has no assets, or the assets are worth very little, there's no cash in the bank, there's no money to collect in, there's no buildings to sell, there's a good chance that none of these creditors will be paid, okay? They might get nothing. And once a company is in liquidation and then it gets dissolved, those debts die with it. They go, they get written off. That's the true part. But there is a bit where directors get caught out. Like liquidation does not automatically protect you from personal guarantees. Doesn't protect you from an overdrawn director's loan account. Doesn't protect you from poor conduct. If you have been kamikaze, you've knowingly taken on debts, you've knowingly not paid suppliers, or you've made payments to your mate Dave at the end. Listen, that's not going to protect you. But do you know what? In 2026, it's definitely not protecting you from HMR scrutiny. And these are the bits that are going to hurt you. And I don't think enough people talk about them. It's almost, you'll speak to insolvency people, it's like, don't worry, be happy. That if you're hearing like, don't worry, it's all going to be fine, you perhaps need to pause. At least until you've had all those bits checked that I've just mentioned. So let's get into the debts that are going to follow you personally, right? Because this is what you really need to hear as a director. Right, number one, personal guarantees. What are they? You've signed a personal guarantee, and it might be on your lease for the building. It might be on a loan, might be on a credit card, might be on a supplier. And what it means is if the business defaults and the business goes into liquidation, that liquidation does nothing to remove your personal guarantee. The personal guarantee that you've signed is going to follow you round personally. And they're going to pursue you. Now, the good news is 99% of personal guarantees will negotiate with you. And it can be, you know, whereas I've got one on at the moment, building company, he owes iWalker 45,000 quid. Now, he's doing a pre-pack, so he's liquidating that business, he's buying his assets back and he's starting again. And he's basically gone to iWalker and said, listen, whatever my payments are a month, I'm going to pay them you in the new company. And iWalker have snapped his hand off. They're happy with that. Most PGs, they don't want huge legal costs chasing somebody. I've had it with iWalker specifically where similar, actually another building company, this guy owed him 140 grand. And he managed to settle with him at 50,000 quid. But this guy could get his hands on 50,000 pound, but he writ off 70,000. So that's a possibility. And equally, that as long as you give them a sensible proposal, there's a good chance that they will, you know, listen to you. Okay. Next thing, and oh my word, I've talked about this for years. Overdrawn directors' loan accounts. And even though quite a few of you watch my videos now, there's not nearly enough because this catches people completely off guard all the time. And this is when you owe the company money and it might be, I'll tell you how these things get built up, right? There's a ledger in your business. When you put money into the company, you might have done that at the start of your business. It goes in as a credit on your director's loan. Whenever you take money out of your business, it goes as a debit on your director's loan account. Now, if the loan account is overdrawn, in liquidation, it's an asset of the business. And I'll tell you how easily these things get overdrawn. Let's say you take £3 grand a month as dividends and £1,000 a month as salary. I'm not a maths genius. I like to keep things simple, right? So you're taking £4 grand a month. Now, if you become insolvent this last year, that £3 grand a month that you've taken as dividends are what would be classed as illegal dividends because you can only take a dividend that's out of a company that is solvent, okay? If you are insolvent, and if you're going to ring someone like me, you are insolvent, everything that you've taken as a dividend while being insolvent will be converted to an illegal dividend and it turns into an overdrawn director's loan account. That's how easy it happens, okay? And that's why most of you have got director's loan accounts. Some of you know about it. Go in your last set of accounts. If there's an overdrawn director's loan account in your last set of accounts and you've continued to take dividends when your company couldn't really afford to, that director's loan account's gone up. If you've got a good bookkeeper, Go on your Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, Free Agent, whatever you use, pull off a trial balance, and it should tell you where your director's loan account sits today. That's if you put it up to date, right? So yeah, it's an asset of the business, and the insolvency practitioner, the liquidator's got a legal duty to pursue it. And my problem with this, right, and I've had loads of people cast stones at me, especially on LinkedIn. Lots of firms don't talk about it. They don't. It's like, yeah, we'll get you into an insolvency process and we'll deal with that down the line. Now, legally, they can't deal with it until they've been appointed. Okay, I get that bit. But you know what I'm going to do, and what my team do, is we tell you your problems up front, okay? So we're going to tell you what your director's loan account is. We're going to help you understand what it might be, okay? It's really important because these are the areas where people end up remortgaging their homes, taking personal loans. Listen, sometimes people get made bankrupt over these things. If you are in rented accommodation, right, with very little disposable income, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but the insolvency practitioner is not going to, most of them aren't going to start recovery proceedings against you because recovery proceedings are expensive and you've not got anything. But if you're in the £1 million home, this is the problem. £1 million house with no mortgage. Liquidation does not erase an overdrawn loan account. It crystallises it, okay? And listen, this is one of our specialities, helping you understand. And I want to shed some positive news on this bit. In most cases, you'll be able to negotiate with the insolvency practitioner. Okay, good ones anyway. And it's depending on your affordability to pay it back. Now, another thing that can cause issues is obviously director misconduct. Like HMRC, they're starting to not just shrug when a company goes into insolvency. You know, they're looking at Phoenix behaviour. You've done this loads of times. Deliberate avoidance. You know, you've deliberately racked up massive PAYE bills to take money out of the business. In serious cases, HMRC can issue a personal liability notice for things like that to you, the director, right? And obviously, if you've been, you know, you're following on from conduct, we've got wrongful trading and making preference payments. So wrongful trading is when you've kept trading with no realistic hope of recovery. Or you've paid one creditor at the end that had a personal guarantee on it, or, you know, it was your mate Dave. You've got to be careful. You know, at the end, you can't be draining all the money out of the business right before you appoint the liquidator, because the liquidator can and will come after you personally. Now, I want to sort of talk to you about safe and dangerous insolvencies, okay? And this is where timing changes things, okay? A dangerous liquidation to me looks like you are waiting till a winding up petition lands on your doorstep and then picking the phone up to us. Now, please, dear God, if you've got a winding up petition, pick the bloody phone up, right? But it comes with more risk. A dangerous liquidation is when you are borrowing money to survive. I see this all the time. The walls are closing in. The wolf is at the door. You get offered a person. I had a director the other day, bless him, right? He's been forced to take 130 grand personally guaranteed loan, right, by other investors. And he needs 250 grand to survive. I'm like, stop it. Because even that PG loan, which you're going to be criticised for afterwards because you've got no hope of recovery, it doesn't even get you out of the hole. Got to be careful, guys. That's a dangerous insolvency. And another thing's ignoring advice. I mean, I've had a guy recently. We spoke to him for months. We told him we were going to get wound up. He got wound up. We then had a way where we could get him into liquidation before he got wound up. I said, but listen, you've got a director's loan account. It's a big problem because you've got loads of assets. And he didn't like what I had to say. He said, I'm coming on too strong. I'm like, mate, I'm just being honest with you. These are problems that we're going to have to deal with. And he decided not to do it. He's been wound up. The consequences on his director's loan account off the official receiver will be much worse than an insolvency practitioner. But he just ignored the advice. And this is how directors lose control. Now, a safe liquidation, okay, it's stopping early. You know, being careful who you make payments to. Understanding your personal exposure. I'm not saying don't do anything, kick the can down the line, but as a responsible director, be responsible to your family as well as your creditors. You've got to document decisions. If you are going to continue to trade, what's the justification for doing so? And actually choosing liquidation before somebody forces you down the liquidation route. Listen, it's the same legal process, but for me, it's a completely different outcome. Liquidation is not designed to punish you guys and girls, but delay will. So, can you liquidate to avoid debts? Here is the honest answer, stripped of all the nonsense. Yes, you can liquidate a company that has debts. You cannot liquidate a company to avoid all responsibility. But if you act early and properly, company debts will stay with the company. Enforcement stops, stress ends, you move on. If you act late and emotionally, the debts can follow you. Personal assets can come into play. Listen, liquidation's a tool, not a loophole. So what should you be doing instead of guessing? This is a framework I want to give you. First of all, be honest with yourself about the viability of your business. And I know this is painful because it could be a baby. But if you've got no hope of recovering this business on a firm financial footing, you need to stop trading. Don't take on new credit. Don't take on any PGs. Understand your director's loan position. I can help you do that. And get advice before one of your creditors forces the issue. You need to choose a controlled, voluntary process than a compulsory one every day of the week. So, liquidation doesn't erase all debt. It does draw a legal line under a failed company, and it can protect you or it can expose you, depending on how and when you act. Now, if you're a UK director asking, can I liquidate to avoid debts? You need some advice before you make a move. And that's what we do at Director First. We help you understand which debts will die with a company, what's going to follow you around personally, what you're going to do as a result of this stuff following you around personally. We help you make decisions that stop things getting worse. So, if you've enjoyed this video, I want you to go over there now. And it's going to go through everything you should be doing before you liquidate a business, okay? And at the end of it, you're going to have a firm understanding of what you can do and what you can't do. Thank you for your time. Chris Worden, Director First.